Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Projector's Facebook Live session. We're here with James Sweeney, the writer, director, producer, and actor of Straight Up. Just for some context, Straight Up is part of our pink screen offerings, both in the cinema at the Projector and on our online streaming platform, the Projector Plus. We do have some films, including Straight Up by James Sweeney, Song Lang, Gender Blend, Changing the Game. And so we'd like you to check it out. The theatrical screenings for Song Lang has sold out, but everything else is available online. Do check out theprojector.sg/plus to rent your films on video on demand, and do check out the films. But today we've kept James a little bit up. He's in LA, it's 11 p.m. there. So thank you, James, for joining us today for a conversation about your first feature film, Straight Up.
Hi, yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah. So James, maybe just take us through the writing process that you had for Straight Up, which it's a very dialogue heavy, but also a very personal film, I imagine. And so, like all this, I mean, do you keep a live journal of sorts with all these nuggets in your personal life, and then put that together in a film?
I mean, I say the film is personal, but it's not autobiographical. So it really is, a fictional narrative that was scripted. It's definitely been a long process to get it from page to screen. I started writing it when I was out of college, and I think it's taken like 7 years to get distributed from the very first draft. Right. So we had done a proof of concept back in 2015, and for the next 3 years it almost came together and then fell apart. There were a few different iterations of producers and talent attached, and then finally I did a crowdfunding campaign, which do they know what that is in Singapore?
Yeah. Our cinema was actually crowdfunded. So
okay.
We had an Indiegogo campaign about 5 years ago to just get some equipment. So yeah, we're very familiar with Kickstarter and crowdfunding.
Great. Yeah. I'm glad. So we did that in the spring of 2018, and we didn't raise that much money, but it held me accountable because I owed all these people this movie. And we finally, I found Katie, my co-lead, and then that's when I had the confidence to feel like we could set some dates, and then we filmed in that fall, and then finished principal in the fall, and then had pickups in January, and a pretty quick post-production process because we premiered that June in San Francisco. So that's the whole process in a very quick nutshell.
And but then when you were writing, did you imagine yourself to be the central actor or the lead actor, or was it something that came about at a later stage during the casting process?
Yeah, I'd always envisioned myself in the role. I studied acting in college, and I've written other scripts, but I intended this to be my first feature because I'd written it to be producible on a micro budget. So yeah, for a few different reasons. One, just I felt like my sensibilities and the comedic timing were just innately my rhythm. But I also felt like it was important to cast an openly queer actor in the lead role, because you're watching this character essentially try on heterosexuality. And if you know in real life that this actor is straight, because those tend to be the ones who are bankable in a traditional financing sense, it's just going to color the chemistry differently between the two lead actors. And so that was something that was important to me. When I'd done the proof of concept back in 2015, we actually did cast another actor in the short film, because the studio that we had made the proof of concept with wanted to cast YouTubers essentially. And he wasn't a YouTuber, but they just didn't want to cast me essentially. So I did relinquish that for then, because I was just eager to find some way to get the story told. But as the process went on, I just realized how important it was for me to try to play the role. And it was definitely a matter of finding the right people, both in front of and behind the camera, who would support that vision, because it's a big risk to take on a first-time actor, writer, and director.
Right. Is this a role that you foresee to continue for yourself in future productions? Because
it's wearing multiple hats?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Like a multi-hyphenate.
Yeah, I do have another feature that
Right.
might be what I'm filming next that I have a producer attached to that I'm also supposed to co-star in that I wrote
Right.
and intend to direct. But I'd say it's not the majority of the projects that I can see. Most of the things I write don't have a role for me in that. So it just
Yeah.
really it's about the story and whether or not I
Yeah.
yeah
Have a
where I
role in
fall.
that. Not just force yourself into the
Yeah,
production.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
Did
that
you know?
obsessed with myself.
Do you know Katie well, or was she like the first time that you worked with her?
I
Your
know her well
co-star?
now,
Yeah.
but to get her into this film, it was just a traditional casting process. We
Okay.
take it as a compliment when a lot of people think that we knew each other beforehand, because I think that speaks to, I guess, how simpatico we both are.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's actually based in Vancouver, Canada. You put out a casting breakdown for struggling actress in your 20s, and you get 3,000 submissions.
Everybody in LA probably.
Exactly. And she wasn't one of those submissions, but I used to work in casting as my day job, and I was just somewhat familiar with her work. I didn't know if she could handle comedy, but I had saw that she was cast in the show called Man Seeking Woman. I'm like, oh, well, that's a great show, so she must be
Right.
somewhat funny. And then she self-taped from Vancouver, which was brilliant. And then we Skyped, and it was just immediately clear that she was somebody that I could entrust with this role. She asked all the right questions, and she respected the material and understood the nuances of the intersections between sexuality and mental health that we were
Mhm.
trying to navigate in a sort of tricky tightrope.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was sort of a slam dunk for me. I wasn't 100% sure if we'd have the chemistry, but that came with time.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it really came across very well. Like, I mean, even the pacing of the dialogue, it's not your conventional kind of pacing. And now talking to you, you speak also at a very, I had imagined that you being in real life would be, but still rapid fire kind of speaking. So was that a character development that you envisioned, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an homage to the old screwball comedy genre.
Right.
And I think maybe when I first wrote the character of Todd, there were more similarities between me and him because I think I was more guileless when I moved to LA. But just like years of rejection have hardened me over time. So there was like sort of a sense of like having to like regress myself to like slip back into like his mindset. So I
Right.
definitely felt like I was putting on a character,
Hmm.
which also because it's such a unique tone, and I tend to gravitate towards naturalism both in the things that I watch and my performance style. But I just had a very clear vision as a director, so it was a little bit of a battle between, uh, you know, um, elevated style and trying to find something, but also feeling like natural and authentic within this world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about, talking to Katie and her asking the right questions and everything. And to me, it was also interesting that you were doing a romantic comedy, but still trying to deal with issues about, sexual identity, mental health, even sexual trauma, actually, which is a pretty heavy topic. Like, I mean, for you, which came first, like wanting to do a comedy or actually wanting to deal with these issues and then realizing that maybe comedy might be a bit of an easier way to get an audience.
That's a good question.
Oh,
I mean, it was so long ago, it's kind of like a chicken or egg question.
right. Yeah.
I think it just sort of was interwoven.
Right.
The backstories for both characters informed the concept and the plot and their relationship and connection to each other and their reasons for entering what is essentially an asexual relationship for the time that they are together.
Mhm.
So I do think they're within the romantic comedy genre. We address, I guess, heavier issues, but I think because we do it through humor, it's more palatable, and
Yeah.
so it makes it easier to digest for the audience. Uh, and I think in some ways that helps normalize it. Because I don't think like everybody who experiences a sexual identity crisis or sexual trauma feels heavy on a daily basis. It's not to say it's not there or doesn't permeate throughout your life at all, but you can still be happy and find joy and laugh. So we weren't looking to make a downtrodden film.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, Tracy Thomas was a great addition to that film also as a therapist. Like, I guess in Singapore also the topic of mental health may not be so openly addressed maybe. So it was quite interesting to see that in the film. But I'm wondering whether you, even in the issues of racism where Randall Park talks about, the Mexicans and all that, did you have to bounce off ideas to see whether it was okay to put these, or you just went ahead with it? And because I know there's comedy, but it's always probably a balance in terms of how far is too far. Like, did you have any concerns in that, in dealing with these heavy topics, but in a comedy scenario?
I guess I do think as a filmmaker, it's also a battle between trying to portray the world that you want to see versus the world as it is.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we've gotten some flack for the racist rhetoric that Randall Park displays in that scene, because maybe it feels out of sync with the romantic comedy genre where we typically expect escapism.
Yeah.
But the reality is there are a lot of racist parents, and especially within the Asian community, which is something that Randall and I talked about. And I think for me, the funny part isn't obviously saying that Mexicans are ruining the country. The funny part is, to me, the awkward family dynamics of when you have such disparate family values. I don't know if I would have written it as it is prior. I mean, had I written that scene post 2016, in terms of the election in the United States.
Yes.
And I recognize that it plays differently, but I also felt like I don't want to change it once it was written, because I think it will stand the test of time. And hopefully when, leadership changes in America, then it won't be quite as sensitive, and people will be able to recognize that it's not a reflection of our values. It's a depiction of people that are real.
Yeah.
But we also didn't want to totally demonize those people either, because I think that's an easy way to write off people who disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, and these are people that, they're your parents in a way. So you need to navigate that space and figure out what kind of balance, and whether you want to engage in these battles, So I could understand, where Todd was coming from, and particularly in an environment where even like Asians can be racist, minorities can be racist to other minorities too. Like, to me, that was an additional layer that scene brought. So I mean, that was pretty interesting. But in terms of in terms of your filming too, like, you chose very specific format, which is 4:3, which is not a conventional format for theatrical. Was that something that you embarked on deliberately, or was it a creative choice with a cinematographer?
Yeah, it was always an intention. Even when we had done the proof of concept, that was also in 4:3. I think it works on several different levels. On one, it's an homage to the old screwball comedy genre, which was traditionally filmed in Academy ratio. I think aesthetically, it lends itself to the balance and symmetry that we were going for. But I'd also argue that thematically, it works on this level of these two characters who are boxed in and don't fit the contemporary standard. And so, it just made a lot of sense for a lot of different reasons. But I'm also seeing a lot of films in 4:3 lately. So it's making a comeback. I think maybe you see it less in comedy. So it stands out more in that respect. But
we saw it in Lighthouse recently, which we're still screening in the cinema, the horror. So yeah, but I mean, talking about aesthetics, like it's a very, very well shot film, like beautiful art direction, and those amazing houses. Like, was it, was it you trying to just, squeeze in these amazingly beautiful LA houses in a story, as opposed to say their own domestic interiors, which we don't see that often. Uh, what was the reason behind all this, house sitting subplot in a way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, again, playing at this idea of these two characters who are playing house and trying to live this life that isn't grounded in their own reality, like they're avoiding something. It's also, I think, fun visually, but I wouldn't have done it if I didn't felt like it made story sense.
Right.
I think maybe when I first written it, which was a nightmare logistically because I'm the one who ended up having to location scout all these places and procure these locations. But I did sort of see it as I was kind of getting tired of watching all these like $20,000 features that take place in one location. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I want to like have nice locations in different places and have it be fast moving and not just slow and cheap and poor. And
Right.
trying to like, I like to say that Todd and Rory want their lives to be a big studio romantic comedy, but they're actually living in an
Right.
indie film.
Yeah.
And I feel like that sort of mirrors like the production design as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, so it was all through what, Airbnb that you managed to get these houses? Or I read somewhere.
Yeah, I mean the house with the rainbow carpet, that was
Yeah.
one of our investors, but everywhere else we found either through Airbnb or cold calling. There's another website that we have in the US called Gigster. It's just
Right.
kind of specifically for location rentals,
Yeah.
but it just took a lot of time and haggling and
Well,
favors.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm kind of just hooked on this other film, Netflix series called Sunset, Selling Sunset. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a real estate show of, Hollywood. And so you get to see all these amazing houses that they're trying to sell. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of nice to see all this beautiful art direction and houses and production design in your film. Yeah, so I mean, you've premiered at festivals prior to COVID happening. How has the response been for you in terms of having your first feature premiere at festivals?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was everything I could have asked for because we premiered at the Castro Theater in San Francisco, which is this giant 1,400 seat theater. It wasn't like totally sold out, but it's a pretty respectable crowd.
Right.
Where people are like, laughing so hard they're clapping. And we had a lovely festival run throughout the US. So I got to travel to a bunch of cities I'd never been and got to see how very different types of audiences reacted to the film because it played at queer and non-queer film festivals.
Right.
So it was just really affirming to me to see, I guess, how universal the film was in a way that I didn't really expect, and to see the different, how it spoke to or meant something to a lot of people, or maybe made them feel seen. I think as a filmmaker, that's really all that you can ask for to move somebody.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we have a question from Ron, and I think we talked about this earlier also about the labels and needing to put people in a box or something like that. So yeah, he says there were a lot of talk about sexual identity and how people, whether it's being part of the LGBTQ community or not, were not able to comprehend Todd and Rory's relationship and Todd's sexuality because it probably doesn't fit into specific labels. What are your thoughts on people imposing their ideas of sexual identity and moving forward? What would you like people in general, like the LGBTQ community, to take from the film? If you had any message that you wanted to put out?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's natural for our brains to label things because we want to be able to understand and process in an efficient manner. I think it's obviously problematic when people don't necessarily fit within that binary. So the more that we can recognize that sexuality, among many other things, is a spectrum, I think the better off we'll be for it. Katie, who plays Rory, likes to describe the film as a love letter to the in-betweens, which is a phrase that I continue to speak about because I can't come up with anything better. And I think we'd like to just say, that no matter where you are in your journey, you're still like deserving of love. And it's okay if you don't have it figured out by age XYZ. And that there are people out there for you regardless of where you're at.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always just trying to, we're conditioned in a way to try and put this person into a specific label so that it's easier for us to deal with them and know how to respond. So it's always a challenge when people, go beyond these boundaries. But that's a pretty nice thing, a love letter to the in-betweens. That's actually quite a pretty good summary of the film. What's next for you?
Yeah, she's a smart cookie. What's next for me? I've got feature and pilot in development. Production's a little bit stalled here in the United States.
Wow.
But my hope is just it doesn't take another 7 years to get the next one off the ground. Right. So fingers crossed.
And you're right. So you're in the process of writing this feature?
One I've written, another one is in the development stages.
Right. Okay. So we've got another question from Tia Ling. Really enjoyed the film. It was so funny. Just wondering, what was your process in writing the dialogue between Todd and Rory? And did you have to cut a lot of scenes in post-production? Do you have a favorite line in the film?
Okay. Well, that's like 3 questions.
So that's 3 questions. Yeah.
All right. Writing process.
Yeah.
I don't really know what my writing process is. It just kind of happens in spurts.
Right.
Tends to be at night. So maybe after this, I'll write another scene for my next film. But
they traveled to Singapore.
We didn't cut pretty much anything. It was a tight shooting schedule because we just had to be economical because it was a low budget. And because I had so much time to gestate in the pre-production process because it took several years, it was a pretty tight script by the time we got to set. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 like very short scenes that we cut. We did reshoot one scene entirely when we did pickups, which was the breakup scene, to get it a little bit more tonally in sync with the rest of the film. And there would be like little bits and pieces that we would like slice off, but it's mostly at the beginning or ending of scenes, not like chunks. Because there's also a lot of long takes. It's kind of hard to chop things out sometimes. In terms of my favorite line, I really like the line. I thought I saw Amy Adams at Trader Joe's, but it was just Isla Fisher. I feel like that's a little bit underrated. People don't talk about that one a lot. I don't know if everyone everywhere will get that, but to me, it's really funny.
Yeah, actually, even her conversations with her mom on the phone, like they were actually quite gems too. I guess there's so many good like one line. Even the whole ironic conversation, like with Alanis Morissette's ironic, and the white elephant, white elephant in the room. I was just like, where are you getting all this from? It has to be like from your own personal life conversations. But
a lot of it's actually, that's to answer a little bit about the writing process for this specifically, is it is sort of a Socratic dialogue of my own head of arguments I've had with myself where I thought I did have that mistake with confusing those 2 idioms for white elephant and elephant in the room. And so this was, I guess, just 2 characters exploring my personal problems.
Right. No, but the punchline, but sex is the white elephant, then I'm like, yes, actually. It was. Yeah, great. I think, yeah, I mean, that's about the time that we have today. So thank you, James, for staying up with us. For those of you who have not, do catch Straight Up, which is available on demand on the
No,
projector.sg/plus. Thanks a lot, James, for joining us today.
yeah. Support
Thank you.
art house theater.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Well, take care.
Bye.